This is Severe MMA. It's the day of Cage Warriors in Liverpool, and we're lucky enough to be joined by recent UFC signee, current undefeated Cage Warriors featherweight champion. And I suppose today, I guess my first question is today a little bit bittersweet? You're handing over your title.
Certainly better than losing it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think that would be a bad situation. Unfortunately, I didn't get to defend it with what happened with Cage Warriors, and then by the time they were back, and then getting on the shows and stuff was difficult. But like, it's time for the next step in my career. But the UFC is where I belong, and now I get to fight there. The Cage Warriors belt, achieving that was a big part of why I will fit in the UFC and succeed in the UFC. So it's not bittersweet. It's not going to be nice not having to sit in the gym anymore. But
you think there's a chance that they might give you a replica title just because you've never lost it, and you've always been a really good ambassador for Cage Warriors?
I think I make enough money in the UFC. I'll buy myself one.
Let's talk about Cage Warriors, because those guys that have used Cage Warriors as the vehicle and the platform to make it to the UFC, invariably they talk about just how good Cage Warriors was for them. I assume you're going to echo the same thing.
Without a doubt. I think at some point in my career before Cage Warriors it was tested, but I never really started to excel until I was fighting on Cage Warriors, because I need to excel, because you're not getting easy fights. Like, I had bouts which were scheduled. With enough time was the loss to McDonough. And then after that, I came straight off a loss, and I was to fight a Polish guy who's 7-1 on a 5-fight win streak, all knockouts. You're not going to get a better platform to be tested, and that's why, as a coach, I want to push a lot of my students towards Cage Warriors. It's a building ground, because you are tested, and you're not building if you're not testing. So Cage Warriors is huge. Plus, being on that stage, when people, the whole UFC jitters thing, I don't think it's going to bother me at all. I fought in arenas for Cage Warriors. I fought from my hometown arenas. I fought in Chechnya for Cage Warriors. That was it wasn't a hostile environment, but it was a very strange environment in a busy venue, in front of the Chechen president. The Cage Warriors put me on a platform to be ready to do well in the UFC.
Obviously, being the champ is probably your biggest moment in Cage Warriors, but what's your favorite? Let's take winning the title out of the equation. What's your favorite Cage Warriors moment? That you've been involved in. Sorry, it's got to be an Alex Enlund moment.
The first time I fought in Newcastle, I think because it was the most scared I'd ever been before a fight. I was in the Metro Radio Arena, where as a child I'd went to see pop stars and things like that, and then now I was on that stage, and a lot of people had came to see me. I think it'd been quite a while before I'd fought locally, and also a while before I'd fought locally and people actually cared about what I was doing. I think when I was like an amateur and novice pro, there was a lot of other guys who I trained with who had maybe a little bit more hype, or had maybe a better following, maybe a better like a larger group of friends. So then by the time I fought Danny Lawson on Cage Warriors 62, I'd started to coach, so I had students there, and that was a little bit of pressure, but I don't know, there was something about fighting in the arena was big for me, and I think that walking out for that fight, because despite the fight going quite well, I'm not happy with moments of it still, but I got better because I'm not happy with moments of it. Walking out then was probably my greatest moment.
The UFC, I've seen them at the Metro Radio. They've come to Newcastle, and there must be some disappointment at not being cleared to fight Hamburg. Are you going to be able to bounce? It's a stupid question, because the PC answer is yes. But are you going to be able to? Are you able to bounce back from that pretty quick? Upstairs, did that play with your head at all?
No. To be honest, the Hamburg fight would have been short notice, but the UFC gives you a chance, I'm saying yes. So, you know, like, I'm making weight and I'm putting on a show. I'm going to do what I do in a fight. I don't need to build myself up to prepare for an opponent, because I always fight and everyone knows what I'm going to do. Nobody stops us doing it, right?
Yeah.
So I was always going to do that, so I didn't need to have a game plan set in place. I just would have went out there and I would have thought I have a really high skill set. Obviously, there was not issues with the weight, but I was in the best shape. But I think that I'm smart enough, experienced enough, and efficient enough for that not to have been a problem. Yeah. But now I get to go in there with zero excuse in the back of my mind that when I get my chance and I get my fight, and I'm standing there waiting to go out, I know that I'll have been able to do everything within my control, and that's going to be the best version of me that comes out every time I have a scheduled fight.
Well, you can rest assured, as soon as we get a sniff that fight's coming, we're going to be in touch for sure. Well, let's come back to Cage Warriors again. You're going to be handing over your title without being defeated in the cage to one or two people tonight. Because this is going to go after the fight, I don't feel cheeky asking, who do you think's going to take the title tonight?
I think Paddy will. I have no doubt that Frenchie's good, and I don't think he's getting the credit for being as good as what he is, because the fight was agreed and he was coming off a loss. There's been jitters of mentions of, but he's coming off a loss. How come it's for the Cage Warriors belt? It's for the Cage Warriors belt because Paddy does deserve to fight for that title. That's a fact. A lot of people are asking for the fight with me and Paddy, obviously.
Yeah.
So Paddy deserves to fight for the title. I'm no longer in Cage Warriors. Paddy's next fight is for the title. The fact Frenchie's coming off a loss doesn't take away from how good he is and how travelled he is, how experienced he is, and he is good, but I don't think he's good enough to beat Paddy.
Feel free just to no comment this question, but a lot of people are pushing Paddy for a win here, and it's UFC Belfast, UFC. That would be wonderful for Paddy. My personal opinion is maybe the best thing for Paddy is a couple more top level. Defend that Cage Warriors title a couple more times, get that big European experience. I'm asking you maybe to play coach, which is unfair because he's got one. But is there any rush for Paddy? He's got time on his side, right?
He's got a lot of time on his side. He's 21 or 22. He's really, really young in this game, and that can work either way. He's got a lot of fights. It's not like he's young and inexperienced. He's 11-1.
I think something like that. He's
he's had 12 fights ago. And it's not like he's inexperienced. But if it doesn't happen, he does have time on his side. So I don't think it matters if it's now. I do think it will happen for him. Yeah. I think he's got the skill set, but he's also got a personality which sells.
Yeah.
Just to a lot of people, like, my personality doesn't sell. I only have to sell myself off my skill set.
Yeah.
Unless you're like a martial artist or a analytical fight fan, most people don't not care about my style. But like, if you look at Damian Maia, it's only now everyone's blowing his trumpet, right?
Yeah.
After he walked through Conda in a few minutes, but he's been doing that his last 4 or 5 fights.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's. I'm not going to say it's similar to that, but Paddy has a good personality. He's charismatic. He does a lot of good stuff on camera. A lot of people like him. He gets a lot of social media hype, and he has a good skill set to back it up. So it doesn't matter if it's now or later for him. It's going to happen.
I'll put it out there. I would love to see him defend the Cage Warriors title a couple of times, because quite selfishly, just for like the UK, Hamburg's not a 1.5 hour, 2 hour drive to go and watch the guys that we know fight. So you know what I mean? For a couple more, let's keep him in the UK and Ireland.
Obviously now, I don't regret never defending my Cage Warriors belt, but I will never get the chance to do that. I've had 3 fights since. Obviously, things just didn't work out, and I know maybe when I'm old I might think, I wish I'd managed to defend it. I don't know if maybe Conor McGregor thinks he wishes he got to defend it. He didn't defend either. Jim Ellis defended it once, right? Right, but this belt helps you get to the UFC. It's important to go and win Cage Warriors belts. If he doesn't get to defend it, it's because he's went on to bigger things.
Yeah.
If he gets to defend it, that's great, and then after defending it, eventually you go on to bigger things.
A question that really doesn't matter because, it's in the past. Hindsight is what it is. But let's say the UFC hadn't come calling as they did. Would you have taken a fight with Paddy at this point?
I'll do anything Graham Boyle and intensity management tells us to do.
That's a fair enough answer.
That's like
I still think just from a fan's perspective, in terms of what that fight could be, I'd have loved to have seen it. I don't know if I just think that would have been a hell of a fight. It would have been a fun fight as long as it lasted.
without doubt.
What's next for you then, Alex? Is obviously the nature of the injury is undisclosed at the moment, and I'm not going to pry on camera. But are we looking at a long time out, or just a few weeks? What's the prognosis for sort of getting back into training?
I don't think it's going to take very long.
Okay.
I want to get everything sorted as quick as possible, and I'm going to get fighting in the UFC because, again, unlike Paddy, I'm not young. 29-year-old.
Oh, okay, you're not young at 29.
For an athlete.
All right, that's good.
For an athlete,
thanks for qualifying that.
There's guys in the UFC who I look at and are in the top 10, and I'm like, you are not as good as me. There's guys in the top 10, and I look at them and I say 9 times out of 10 I beat you. Some of them have tricks, and some of them pull out 1 out of 10. Anyone who says they win every fight 100% of the time is lying to camera, lying to themselves. Okay, there is always possibility. Yeah. Right. There is guys who I beat 9 times out of 10 in the top 10.
I want to ask you, give me a name. Let's not go top 10, let's go top 15, because then we're not really being...
I'm going to say I watched the Charles Oliveira Anthony Pettis fight.
Yeah.
I beat both of those guys. Hands down. I beat both of those guys. I'm a bad fight for both of those guys.
So if we say, December, Metro Arena, Newcastle, Alex Enlund and Anthony Pettis, you wouldn't say no to that?
I wouldn't say no to it, but that's not how the UFC works.
No, of course.
I'm going to have to go in there, I'm going to have to run through some people, and then get myself into that top 10, because that's where I belong. Do you know? I think some guys get in the UFC and they don't belong there and they need built up. I will walk my way into that top 10 because I've been on Cage Warriors and I've already been built up. I've already become experienced. I've been doing martial arts for now, and MMA specifically for 11 years. I know the game. Do you know, I know my level, and I don't think a lot of people are on it.
Have we seen the best of you yet?
No.
How much? I mean, it's that cheesy journalistic question I ask all the time. But what potential have we seen you at the moment? Working at 80%, 60%? Where?
I don't know, but I felt my last fight. I'd been working with Carl Tanswell for 8 weeks. I've never walked into a fight feeling as good in my life. I knew what I was going to do. I looked down in the change rooms of the cage, and I knew what panel I was going to walk him to, where my footwork was going to put him, and what was going to happen when I put him there. And now I've been working with Carl 8 weeks. Having someone who can bring the most out of me as an athlete, and you've seen all this before I had that.
Yeah.
I've got more to come. A lot more.
Unsung, because SBG right now is synonymous with the Dublin and John Kavanagh and stuff, and there's Matt Thornton, the guru, but Carl still maybe known in the UK scene, but still unsung in the global scene. How long is it going to take for that to change?
Not long. The team down there is solid. I get on it. I get up at 5:30 in the morning to travel down there when I go train down there. Sometimes I stop at a friend's house, sometimes I stop at a hostel, because Carl not only makes a difference in my MMA game, me as a martial artist, he makes a difference in me as a person. And he's it's worth all the travel, it's worth the train fares, it's worth the having to spar with absolute killers on 4 or 5 hours sleep, because of how good he is as a coach, and I want to be in his gym.
And that makes the
team. It's there. The team down there is incredible. There's a handful of guys, handful of amateur guys, handful of novice pros. But if you look at what Saul Rogers just did to Andre Winner.
Yeah. It was phenomenal.
Stapes, phenomenal athlete.
Yeah,
great martial artist, and probably the toughest man I ever know. You see the fight on Bama where he didn't want that doctor to stop that fight.
No. Well, we get it again.
Davey Grant was fighting in the UFC on Manchester.
Yeah.
Now Davey's injury free. Davey can be one of the best bantamweights in the UFC. I just take a second to thank obviously Graham Boyle and Ian for everything they did with my career on Cage Warriors. Without those tough fights I was given, like I was given Romanowski in Chechnya, Lobov in Ireland, and like when the Ultimate Fight was going on, people were slating that, not slating Lobov, but saying that he only got in because he's Conor's training partner. He knocked 3 guys out in the Ultimate Fight house. Yeah. Right? He deserved his spot in the finale because he knocked. I don't know if anyone else has knocked out all 3 opponents.
No.
Whilst in the house, he did that, right?
Yeah, he was certainly
KOing people, right?
And he was certainly compared to some an entertaining fighter.
And I got constantly, it should be you and then on him. I was like, well, it shouldn't. He tried out for the Ultimate Fighter and then he went and knocked 3 people out. And he's an absolute killer. He's doing okay in there. He's staying in the UFC. So to give his Lobov in Ireland. And then Narimani was a tough fight.
It's tough.
Stylistically, Narimani is one of the toughest fights for me in the world. With his style.
That's good. It's good to hear Nad getting a shout out. I'm pretty sure he's going to appear at Cage Warriors in.
He's on in Wales. I'm looking forward. I'm going to be there. One of my students, Adam's fighting on that card, on the undercard. He's 20-year-old, 5-0. He needs to be around Cage Warriors because he could be the next Cage Warriors welterweight champion in a few years.
So you're still going to keep your finger in the Cage Warriors pie, as it were. You still get to come to it. Still get to.
It's run like clockwork. They look after guys, and I think a lot of people on the UK MMA scene would rather fight at home because they can make money on tickets and all of this. Listen, regardless on the grassroots level, you don't make money fighting. You shouldn't expect to make money fighting. You should expect to make experience so you can make money fighting. And that's my view on it.
Alex, as I said, you wanted to. Was there anybody else you wanted to give? You thanked Graham. You thanked Ian Dean. Anybody else you want to quickly shout out?
Just all my training partners and all the guys. I have worked with a lot of different coaches throughout my career, and had a lot of people help me. And I've had a lot of people provide opportunities. They all know who they are, and when I'm fighting, a lot of my work is also part of their work. You know, like I wouldn't be who I am without each and every person who's even contributed a little bit. Even the guys who've interviewed us, the guys who.
I'd like to say you're welcome.
And no, but when you get asked to do an interview or speak to people, that makes you feel special. Do you know, like that you're not just having a fight. And no one cares. Yeah. You know, it's nice to know that people care, and I think every little piece of the puzzle made me who I am today, and can make me UFC champion.
Well, let's hope we get that debut out of the way before the end of this year. Alex, I keep shaking your hand. It is always a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much. Cheers.